Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain. I'm Rachel, with my coffee, with my books and my reviews, and no rain, but there is potential in the air. It feels like it could snow, but there is no snow in our forecast. It just feels like that. Like, it'd be great if it did. It's actually kind of interesting because I was at work earlier today, and I was walking outside and this other guy was in front of me and we were just kind of chatting as we were walking out, and I looked up and they're on one of the buses that were outside of our office. There was about 3 or 4 inches of what looked like solid snow. And I was like, is that snow on top of that bus? And he's like, yeah, where did they go? And I was like, I don't know, but I don't know anywhere around here that snowed like that lately. So, not sure where that bus went or came from, but it was not just like a little layer of ice like I had on my car this morning. It was a good 3-ish inches because it had tumbled off and had little ice chunks. So I was impressed. Wherever they went, I don't know how far you would have had to go outside of Huntsville to get that kind of snow. I'm curious. But anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about snow other than it is wintertime, and we are talking about Tailored Realities by Brandon Sanderson. Now, Tailored Realities is kind of a collection of what you could say short stories, half-baked ideas, half planned, like little snippets and things he wrote for other, either other people at other people's request because he was playing with an idea, all of that sort of stuff. So that's what this particular book is Tailored Realities is a collection of short stories, but he also included in this particular book a longer work of fiction called Moment Zero. And so the reason I'm just kind of clicking because I thought there would be like, there's not. So I pulled up the ebook because I did in fact have both the ebook and the audiobook. The best I can come up with for like what's inside of this particular book is somewhere within the first couple of pages is, it's not really an index, but it's the best I could find. But it's something kind of like an index to help me figure out or tell you guys what's in this book. So we've got something called Firstborn, which was written in 2005, something called Defending Elysium in 2008, I Hate Dragons, 2011, Mitosis is part of the Reckoner series. Now, funny enough, I swear I have either listened to the audiobook or something. So when I got to mitosis in this particular book, maybe it's never been in like physical publication before, I had already heard that story. Now, it came out in 2013. And again, potentially I had like an audiobook, like a novella almost, perhaps, but the fact that it's now 12 years later and it's finding itself into a book, like, good for it. So anyway, if you like the Reckoner series, Mitosis, I want to say happens between book 1 and book 2. So it is after the downfall of Steelheart, but before they go to Babelar and do all the antics and shenanigans there. Then we have Dreamer, which was edited by Charlene Harris, and that was a very interesting one. And it's Perfect State, Snapshot, Brain Dump, Probability Approaching Zero, and Moment Zero. So, anyway, going back, we actually start with Snapshot. And Snapshot was a very interesting sort of story where there is a new sort of science, and I'm not going to go through each and every story to try to explain or break down how Brandon Sanderson has utilized a different system of magic or anything. I just thought I'd kind of hit like one or two, and then you all can go out and find it if you're interested. But anyway, we start with Snapshot, where we have this buddy cop kind of thing, partnership going on, and both of them seem to, I don't want to say they've been pulled from the streets, but in a way, it seems as though maybe their reputation with the police force isn't the most pristine. And so they're being utilized as more or less snapshot police. And so what that is in this maybe not too distant future, there is a way for the city to, let's say a bank was robbed. And they say, okay, well, that happened on December 3rd. So now it's maybe December 7th, and we can go back, we can take a snapshot of December 3rd, and then we can actually enter it like almost a modular or like a virtual reality simulation or something like that. The only thing is doing these snapshots, you can turn them off and you can interact with the people in it. You can accidentally change the way things play out from the moment you enter the snapshot to the time you leave. And so what they're trying to do is, okay, who robbed the bank? So they go to that particular day and time and they're able to see the culprit. And as long as they don't change too much about that snapshot, the butterfly effect where a butterfly flaps its wings and a tsunami hits somewhere in Asia or Southeast Asia. I think like the smallest things can trigger much bigger events. So as long as they don't do anything that has altered the timeline past a certain percentage, then the snapshot is considered pretty valid, and then they're able to more or less utilize that cop's testimony as evidence in a prosecution. So these two people, Anthony Davis and his partner Chaz, so let's say Davis and Chaz, they are the two real people in this particular snapshot. And they have entered this snapshot in order to determine, I guess a murder has taken place. They're trying to get more information so they can come back to the present and utilize that information to solve this particular crime. And however, some things I don't want to say break bad, but go in very different directions. Not so much as that they're warping the timeline or anything, but let's just say that they discover more than they bargained for in this particular snapshot. There was a much bigger crime happening at that time in the city on the day of the snapshot that they didn't know until they entered this snapshot. So now they get really curious because now, they run into this particular, they find themselves in a place where there are multiple bodies floating in a pool. Now, these people are deceased, and this particular person who has done this is called the photographer, because he seems to do these things and not get caught in snapshots because no one knows when to set the snapshot in order to catch him. So these two police officers, Davis and Chaz, they get kind of curious. They're like, well, maybe we can do something inside of this snapshot that they can use the information in real life outside of the snapshot in order to catch this guy. Because if they catch him inside the snapshot, it doesn't really matter. He's only kind of captured in this particular bubble in time. But they would still have to catch him on the outside as well. So even though they're doing all this legwork to try to figure out who's done it, and they do get a little off track from the thing that they were trying to do, or the thing that they were supposed to do, they are able to put get some answers for this particular crime. And it was quite interesting. Now, the way things play out towards the end, both surprising and kind of expected. I was very intrigued because at one point I was like, oh man, oh no. But I'm not trying to give you guys spoilers. I'm not trying to ruin this short story for you all. However, there is a certain moment of illumination between the characters, And let's just say it goes in some very interesting ways. The way it ends is also very interesting as well. Now, one of the things I do like is that at the end of each story, Brandon Sanderson kind of comes on, or kind of... Okay. Here's a funny thing, and here's a very interesting thing. I don't see it in the book. Yeah, I don't see it in the book. I don't see it in the ebook. Oh, okay. Maybe I have to go a little further. Sorry, I just got to like chapter 2 and I was like, wait, no, I didn't see what I was looking for. So at the end of each short story, Brandon Sanderson gives a little synopsis of like his thought process and all that sort of thing. So I was just trying to get to the end of this. Oh, there it is. The postscript. He does a little postscript at the end of each one. And it's kind of a medium length story, and he says so far it is the story that has been optioned most often for film and television. And as of this writing, it is the project I have furthest along towards actually getting made. So that's really interesting. That was one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this one, because there is a lot of stuff I didn't tell you that happens in this book. It is about 15% of the book, so it is one of the longer stories in this. I think the longest one being Moment Zero. So it's very interesting. Or maybe it's like the one that's about like merging towards zero. Anyway, but that one right there was so good. But this one was also very cool. And he says he worried the ending's a little too obvious, but then again, the reason it's obvious is because it's so powerful. And again, I'm not trying to spoil it for you. I'm just trying to throw that out there. The idea of the screen going black mid-thought was engaging enough that I knew I had to write towards it. So that's pretty cool. I was very interested in this one. And at first, I kind of had a little bit of a harder time, like just at the very, very beginning, wrapping my head around the fact that this was a Brandon Sanderson story, because it didn't feel incredibly like Brandon Sanderson right away. But the further along I got into it, the more it did. And so I think that was one of the best things about this particular short story. Now, there is another short story, I think it's called Brain Dump, and I'm not sure where along in the series, or it's actually number 2. I just happened to click it. Where Brain Dump is more or less about being able to be like a father and mother who go to let's just say a company, and you get to pick the designer brain you want for your upcoming child. Now, both of them are naturals, which means they are born with the brains they were given by their parents naturally. It was not a designer brain. We didn't go out and get the Louis Vuitton or the Versace brains. We just got the ones our parents gave us. And so they go to this store and they start talking about, various percentages. It's like, oh, well, they have 7,000% more chance of being, a star baseball player. It's like, yeah, but what does that break down to? What does that actually look like in a number? And they're like, 7,000% more. And they're like, 7,000% more than what? What is the number that we are 7,000% more than in the possibility that they could potentially become the next DiMaggio? And so it's just very interesting. And just based on the postscript for that one, apparently he was in an Apple store, and while his wife was shopping around potentially for a phone or potentially accessories, I'm not sure, Brandon was sitting there thinking about, well, what if we could do something like that but for brains? And it kind of gave me a little bit of a young Frankenstein vibe, because it's like when we dropped the real brain that we were going to put into the monster, we had to go get another brain. And so we got the Abby brain, and it's like, Abby who? And it's like, normal. So it's the Abby normal brain. And so anyway, I just kind of chuckled at that once I listened to the postscript. It was really kind of funny. Well, Going to the kind of the biggest work of this particular book, it is the very final bit where, gosh, it's probably a very large. I just wondered if I could go to the table of contents and click on. Is it Moment Zero? Yeah, it's called Moment Zero. And yeah, so that's the great thing about going into the NetGalley reader is there's like there's a little arrow where you can go back and forward and backwards, but there's also a little book. And if the book is broken out into chapters and such, you're able to like click on that particular section and then go straight to it. And from there, we start learning about, again, the sort of cop couple, Lisa and, what's his name, Dane, who